So as we all know that home workers, mainly women, they are often engaged in informal tiers of apparel and footwear supply chains. Those are residing beyond the factories. Their precarious employment remains unrecognized and largely out of sight from various monitoring mechanisms, which is combined with weak and absent legal protections, which puts vulnerable workers at risk of exploitation. Home workers have some of the worst pay conditions of any workers in the value chain, and the lack of visibility of home workers hampers the ability of international brands and retailers address the issues of home workers within their own supply chains. Well, over the past year, home workers worldwide and Cividep India, they have researched and have been gathering best practices in relation to home working with practitioners from brands, multi-stakeholder initiatives, trade unions, and various NGOs. These extensive learnings and best practices have been thoughtfully condensed into a short and a very practical toolkit, which is named as Finding Hidden Home Workers in Apparel and Footwear Supply Chains. This toolkit is an initiative of Hidden Home Workers, which is a 4-year-old program led by 4-year program led by Tradecraft Exchange, HomeNet South Asia, and Home Workers Worldwide, which is co-founded funded by European Union. This toolkit is a set of online tools and templates which can be well implemented within supply chains of global businesses to help them achieve transparency about home working within their own value chains. It encompasses a range of tools and templates such as model MOUs between all the active supply chain parties bearing home working, model contracts of workers and contractors, suppliers, model handworking guidance, and guidance on having right policies and practices within supply chains. These tools are a way to build a system that help brands and businesses to meet their legal compliances and achieve strategic competence amongst the peers by adopting transparent processes and thereby building efficiencies and gaining trust within the supply chain actors. We have kept this toolkit as an open research of for all our stakeholders, especially for brands and businesses who benefit from home working within their business operations. And they wish to improve working conditions till the last mile of their value chains. So the toolkit is available for download for all stakeholders on our website. Kritika, it would be great if you could sort of share the URL on the chat box. So with the mandatory human rights due diligence on the horizon, it is important that brands and suppliers, they're adequately prepared to meet the responsibilities. And we hope that our toolkit will make it easier for brands and suppliers to work together to improve the home working conditions and to improve home workers' rights in the supply chains. So the steps and approaches defined in the toolkit, if constructively implemented, can can overcome the transparency and operational barriers and can create a win-win situation for all across for all the actors across the value chain. These tools as would serve to improve working conditions of home workers as well as furthering the brands to their due diligence processes, which is in line with UNGP and range of other national and international frameworks. It has been witnessed in the past that tools such as these, they enable businesses and brands to take an inclusive approach towards home working, who are part of supply chain, and treat them fairly and break the cycle of concealment and denial by adopting some of the best practices from the industry, taking taking a more transparent approach in business, making businesses accountable, risk-free, and hence competitive. Well, some of the housekeeping rules that we have, I'm just pointing before we go ahead, is that the session is recorded. There will be a question and answer session, and we appreciate all of you guys to engage and ask questions with our worthy panelists. We encourage all of you to do that to make best use of their time. and because we have kept a separate time for it. Uh, and you can either ask your questions by unmuting yourself or putting them up across on the chat box. I'm happy to pass on the session to Mr. Peter Williams, who is the co-author of Homeworker Worldwide Toolkit, of Hidden Homeworker Toolkit, and I invite him to introduce himself and the panelists. Over to you, Peter.
Okay. Thank you, Garima. Okay, I'm Peter Williams. I'm going to talk to you today about the toolkit. I'm going to share the presentation with my colleague Pradipan Ravi, from Cividep India. We were the authors of the toolkit. But I'd like to start by sharing with you the findings of the research that underpins the toolkit, which was carried out by Homeworkers Worldwide and Cividep, looking into the barriers to transparency in homeworker chains and how these can be overcome. And can you see my screen? Yep, good, great. So the research sought to identify the tools and approaches that have been successful, tools that have been used by leading practitioners, both from commercial practitioners and civil society practitioners, to improve transparency of homeworking in global apparel and footwear chains. We tried to identify the tools that have been successful in getting transparency to homeworkers and of homeworking, and which approaches had resulted in better pay and conditions for homeworkers. The study was based on interviews with 15 leading practitioners, including 4 major apparel and footwear retailers and brands, specialist NGOs working in the sector, multi-stakeholder initiatives including ETI, FLA, Fair Wear Foundation, and the ILO, and the Homeworkers Union, SEWA. We brought together the tools and learning into this toolkit for businesses and civil society organizations working with businesses, and its full title is Finding Hidden Homeworkers in Apparel Supply Chains. I'll go through the research findings, and then Pradipan Ravi from Cividep India will give you a quick tour around the toolkit, and we'll take questions at the end if that's okay. And it's not. I'm going to have to stop sharing because my screen has paused. 1 second. Let's try it again.
Sometimes there's a lag, Peter. If you it'll probably
just a lag.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a lag.
Okay, let's go work on the lag theory. The lag theory proves correct. Okay, I'll try not to repeat some of the things that have been said already, but just to go through the where homeworkers are. Homeworkers are employed informally in dispersed subcontract chains out of sight of auditors and inspectors. Their precarious employment and weak protection in national labour laws puts homeworkers at risk of exploitation, and they have some of the worst pay and conditions of any workers in the value chain. Most are paid piece rates, and piece rates are usually far below the minimum wage. These low piece rates increase the risk of child labour as families struggle to meet their basic needs. Homeworkers receive few, if any, of the rights, benefits and protections enjoyed by regular employees, including sick pay, holiday and maternity leave. In short, and most homeworkers are women, and homeworkers are the women workers with the worst pay and conditions in many garment and footwear supply chains. Homeworking is much more prevalent than is commonly supposed. The ILO recently estimated that there are between 100 and 300 million homeworkers, around 8% of the global workforce. 11% of all women workers work from home. NGOs have estimated that there are around 4 million home workers in Pakistan and 37 million home workers in India. Most are working for local markets, but around 3.5 million of those Indian home workers are believed to be contributing at some part of the year to the manufacture of products for global apparel and footwear brands. However, home workers are rarely, if ever, identified in social audits carried out by or on behalf of those same retailers and brands. Why is this so, and what can be done to make home working more visible? Our research identified 3 main factors why home working is hidden. Suppliers may fear they'll lose orders if they disclose the use of home workers by their subcontractors. They may not know how home working can be managed in a responsible way. They may worry about labour costs rising if home workers' pay is increased, and how much it will cost to implement, and who will end up paying for all this. The nature of home working chains is also a huge factor. They work in dispersed communities and are not easily found by auditors or by brand reps. Home workers may not know which factory they're working for, let alone which brand they're producing. And they have no way to alert retailers about their working conditions, let alone raise a grievance. With no employment contract, home workers are in a weak position to bargain and a weak position to complain about conditions, whether to factories or to government authorities. And finally, there's been a history of attempts by brands to prohibit home working. Negative or mixed messages from brands tend to lead to concealment by suppliers, leaving brands unaware about home workers in their chains. Our research revealed a cycle of negative messages from brands and concealment by suppliers. This was summed up by one of the people we interviewed, Ines Kampfer from the Centre for Child Rights and Business, an expert in this field who we're very fortunate to have with us on the panel today. But what she said was very germane, and I'm going to read it out. That the biggest barrier to transparency is the perspective of many brands who've institutionalized the message that home working will not be tolerated, or a more subtle message that home working will create a lot of issues and a lot of work. And these act as an incentive on suppliers not to disclose the presence of home workers. Suppliers keep up the impression that all production is taking place in the factory, and this is a challenge because it prevents brands from seeing the home workers making their products. The situation is summed up in this infographic. If brands prohibit home working, the situation on the left, suppliers may simply conceal the presence of home workers. Concealment makes home workers more vulnerable, and brands are left unaware of home workers making their products and therefore unable to improve their conditions. The best way to break the cycle of denial and concealment is for brands to adopt an inclusive approach towards home workers. An inclusive home worker policy gives permission to suppliers to disclose home working, as shown on the right. The transparency mechanism that we're trying to promote enable retailers and brands to know about home workers' pay and conditions and allows them to make sure that these are fair and equitable. Our research also identified many factors which facilitate transparency over home working. As we said before, companies can break the cycle of denial and concealment by adopting a home worker policy. The policy needs to take an inclusive approach to home working and seek to raise home working conditions. It shouldn't penalise suppliers for disclosure. Instead, it should commit to work with suppliers to identify home workers and improve their working conditions. A good home worker policy gives permission to suppliers to disclose. The other factors that facilitate transparency are strong mutual brand supplier relationships and having in-country staff or a local organisation who can help you navigate the pitfalls of gender, caste and religion if it's in South Asia. And where home workers are organised, transparency is better because home workers organisations can raise issues on their behalf. So we gathered the good practice tools and learning from practitioners and brought them together in a practical toolkit to help companies improve transparency in home worker chains. And here I'm going to pass over to my colleague Pradipan from Cividep.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter, for giving that, for detailing the context and background of the toolkit that we developed. Now I will try to take you through the key aspects of the toolkit itself. Let me share the screen. I hope everyone is able to see the screen. So this is the toolkit and this is how it looks. So if we go to the third page of it, we get the overview of the toolkit. So this is a very important page. And this is from here, we will be able to navigate to any part of the toolkit just by the click of the mouse. So what we think as the cornerstone of this toolkit is its simplicity and the inclusive nature of the toolkit. As the emphasis is more on consultations, especially with those at the bottom of the supply chain. So it is also designed in a way that it is easier for the brands to adopt it and customize it to their needs. So that flexibility is available. And the focus of the toolkit is also on the interventions which have worked on the field, which have brought changes in the past, difference in the past. So all of these changes and learnings and interventions have been encapsulated into 8 simple steps. And all at each steps we have mentioned what the company should be doing. And we have also provided practical examples of best practices and also the tools which can be adopted to implement. The steps were also proposed keeping in mind that the needs and requirements of each of the brands will be different, and that the brands would be at different stage with respect to home working. Some brands might be at the beginning stage where they are just beginning to focus, and some brands might have had already implemented some changes. So the brands can assess that and adopt this toolkit depending on their position. So if a brand is just at the first, if it is just looking at the home working for the first time, then it might have to start from the first step 1, where it has to adopt a policy on home working. So now we can go to that page step by just clicking on it. Yeah. So now we are there. So where we have given the details of what constitutes a good home working policy, what are the elements incorporated in a good policy, and why the brand should have it, and how a robust policy looks like. So those are all detailed here. And if you go down, and the steps of how to do that is explained along with the tools that will help you to do that. For example, here there are a number of model tools, policies that we have listed out. So you can pick and choose a policy that is suitable for you, and it also allows you to customize. For example, here we have the ETI model home workers policy, and there is Pentland brands home workers policy. So I'm just clicking on the ETI policy. So now we are there. So this is how the ETI policy looks like, and you can go through it and you can make changes and customize it according to your needs. So these all gives good examples, working examples of policies that you can adapt. So the steps are also explained here, how to go about that. So now I'm taking you back to the overview page. You can do that just by clicking on this button on the footer, overview on page 3. So now again, you are back to the overview page. So as I mentioned, brands can, use the step, which is, depending on the position they are in. So I see the step 3 is very important. So I'm clicking on the step 3, where engaging with supply chain actors and mapping the supply chain is detailed. So we all know home working chains are pretty complex, and it involves a lot of stakeholders. So when we plan any intervention, it is important for us to engage with all the stakeholders, be it home workers, the subcontractors, the suppliers. So this third step explains the importance of that, especially the focus is on trust building. So as you know, there is no hard and fast policy on how to do this, but based on our experience of our past work, we have listed out how to go about that. And we have also given some guidance on how to do that. For example, there is a guidance on engaging with suppliers. So it starts with initial meetings with suppliers and subcontractors. So here it is explained how to go about. So what to mention in the first meetings, the do's and don'ts of that. And we have also given models of MOUs, because it is very important that these stakeholders are made partners when we do some interventions. They become partners. It is very important. So how to do about them? Some model MOUs are given. So just by clicking on that, you will be able to download it. And you can open it and use it according to your needs. Again, here, you can customize it to fit your needs. So that flexibility is very well there. Sorry. Yeah. So now I'm going back to the overview page. So due to lack of time, so I'm not taking you through all the steps. The step 4 and 5 again are very important steps, where we are talking about the transparency mechanisms. So here again, we have listed out what are the transparency mechanisms that have been implemented by some of the brands in the past, along with some NGOs. So the details of that is available in this step. And for example, model contracts with subcontractors that we will have to, that we are going to work with. Here you could see model passbooks. For example, the piece rates usually are maintained by the home workers informally. They write down in a pocket dictionary, for pocket diary, for example. So we have provided a model passbook and a model purchase order for subcontractors engaged by the factories. So again, this you can take as models, and it's taking time if I open it, so I'm not going to do that, and I leave it to you to explore it in detail. So this is how the job card that we have designed, a simple, very simple tool, which kind of brought some changes in the supply chain, in Pentland supply chain, for example, which really worked in that supply chain. So those models are all available in the list here. So I'm going to the last step, where maintaining and sustaining transparency mechanism. We are talking about that, because whatever changes, whatever interventions we are making, sustaining it is very important. So how to do that? What examples are available? So that is described in this step, starting from how to support home workers. Organize, if there are organized home workers, how to include them and involve them in this work, and also taking support of local institutions and local CSOs to support this kind of activity is very key. So the steps for that is described here, and a list of recommended civil society organizations which have worked on this theme is also provided here in this list. So this is how the toolkit is designed. So in each step, we have given the steps to be followed along with a set of models that the brands can look at. So rest, I'm leaving it to the participants to explore the toolkit in detail, and we'll be happy to answer any questions coming up. So over to Peter. Thank you. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Thank you, Pradipan. I think Peter's going to just finish up this section.
Yes, here we go. Just a final. One second. I just want to give a few words before we have questions. In conclusion, and there we go. Great. So home workers are the women workers with the most precarious employment and lowest pay in many apparel and footwear chains. And retailers and brands need to address home working if they want to know about and reduce the risks of to home workers working on their products. There are simple and proven tools for improving transparency and getting fairer employment, and these have been brought together in the Hidden Home Workers Toolkit. The most effective way of getting transparency and traction over home working is to take an inclusive approach to home working. An inclusive home worker policy gives a message to suppliers and other supply chain actors that they can disclose without negative consequences. This is essential to ensure that home workers' livelihoods are not damaged and home working is not driven underground, making it harder to address. Mapping home working is labor intensive, so it makes sense to work in collaboration with other companies, but also working in collaboration is more likely to achieve sustainable results. Imagine that you're a subcontractor and one brand wants you to pay a higher piece rate to your home workers and introduce these basic sort of record keeping. The other brand doesn't, and it has lower piece rates. And so you have to navigate, telling home workers, okay, for this piece of work, you're going to get 5%, 10 rupees. And for that piece of work, you're just going to get 7. You can see this is a tricky thing for subcontractors to navigate. There are a lot of transactional costs. So the more that we can get brands involved, the more suppliers that we could get involved adopting these systems, the more likely it is that subcontractors will adopt them and systems will be maintained. I will point out that a local civil society partner with appropriate skills and experience increases your chance of success. And there's a clear role for multi-stakeholder initiatives to play in sharing good practice and facilitating collaboration between brands. And finally, the Hidden Home Worker Project, we have resources that we can make available to retailers and other companies to help tackle some of these difficult issues. That's our contact details. You can contact any of the Hidden Home Workers partners to find out more about the work that we're doing. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Are there any? I mean, we will have more of a question and answer session at the end, but I think if there are quick questions that specifically arise from Peter and Pradipan's presentations, I think there's some.
There's a question.
Yeah.
For Peter.
In the Q&A, Peter, there's a question from Stacey, who works from Liberty. Lovely to see you, Stacey. Well, not see you, but
Yes.
lovely to hear
So-
from you.
Okay, so Stacey asks, is there a list of recommended organisations to work with in the different regions with a high prevalence of home working, or a criteria to use to help select the right partners? So we've listed some organisations. There are a lot of organisations are based in India, and in South Asia is well equipped with organisations, because there is the HomeNet South Asia network, and local, there are good partner organisations in India. In other parts of the world, we can almost certainly find somebody. There is the Centre for Child Rights and Business, which has offices in Hong Kong and elsewhere, and so yes, we can usually trace and find organisations, but there isn't a global list of organisations that you can immediately access. What we've got is some good places to start that search. So, and that's in the toolkit.
Okay, I think we should leave it there, but I would encourage you, we have got some time for a Q&A session at the end. We're going to pass over to our panel now, just to have some immediate reactions to the toolkit. But at the end, we will then have a Q&A. So I would really encourage you to put any other questions, either to Peter and Pradipan or to members of the panel. Now our panel is made up, we've got Emma Harding from Ted Baker, the brand, who's going to speak first. Shyam Agarwal from Radiant Expo Vision, who is a supplier company based in the north of India, with some experience of using home workers. And then Ines Kamfer, the CEO from the Centre for Child Rights and Business. So I'm going to pass over now to Emma, who's going to give her reactions as a brand rep to the toolkit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. So hi, I'm Emma Harding, and I manage Ted Baker's ethical programme. For those that don't know, or maybe unfamiliar with Ted Baker, we're a premium British fashion and lifestyle brand. And we've got a supply chain across the world that we've been trying to map and work with our suppliers in partnership to improve working conditions. We've had a really big challenge when it comes to disclosure of home workers. We understood that home working was used in many different product types, but particularly because we do some very occasion wears and heavily embellished products, and also some hand finished products. But we had an issue with our suppliers not disclosing this to us, mainly because it was not being found in audits, and it was not being found in forms that we were being asking them to complete. The visits that we did to the suppliers were really the only way that we could see that there were signs of home working, or we could have an open enough discussion to bring up the topic of home working and try and find out if it was used. I think it's important for all brands that whilst compliance for factories is relatively commonplace now, it's still really quite new further down the supply chain. And subcontractors have often not been required to comply with codes of conduct or policies, and aren't even familiar with what they are. So for us, we knew that there was a disparity between what we perhaps had in our code of conduct and our policies, and what was understood further down the supply chain. The reason behind our interest in mapping home workers was the knowledge that they are the more vulnerable part of our supply chain, and we knew they existed, we just didn't know where. So we have also faced the pandemic, which has actually raised the opportunity of home workers, and this was brought to our attention by some of our suppliers, that home working has actually been seen as an easier access point, considered more kind of appropriate now perhaps than before. So for us, we're at the beginning of our journey, and the toolkit came at a perfect time. It is such a practical collection of resources. It also sets the tone and values of how to approach home working. So starting with the openness and the acceptance of it. For us, being transparent is the only way that we can make improvements. And so showing the language, using the even the examples and models that the toolkit provides has actually been able to help us uncover home working in India and China, and speak openly with our suppliers that it is okay for this to be the case, for home workers to be used, but also that we are interested in working with them in collaboration to make sure that we understand the conditions and also the potential improvements that can be made. So I think as a brand, it has been very useful to find a set of step-by-step, easy to follow resources, but also from such diligent and respected organizations. So we feel that the recommendations we're using can be adopted by other brands, especially if we share suppliers or subcontractors. It does set direction. So as I said, we are at the beginning for Ted Baker, but we see that it's given us a light ahead of how we can proceed. And this has given us confidence that we are taking the right steps and using the right kind of questions and approach to our suppliers. So I think if there is anything else that as a brand I can add, please do ask questions or feel free to contact me after the webinar. Thanks, Lucy. You're on mute.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Okay, I'd like to pass over now to Mr. Agarwal, and I think he'll introduce himself and then say a little about your reactions to the toolkit, Mr. Agarwal. You're on mute.
Thank you, Lucy. And thank you for providing me opportunity to learn, because today I think many experts, those who are working in the field of home workers, are present here. Already means a lot of things have been said about this toolkit. I have got this toolkit yesterday evening, though I didn't get much time to go through it in detail, but still I can say yes. First of all, congratulations. Congratulations to entire team, those who have worked hard and means to develop this toolkit. Probably they have used all their experiences. Like it is said that many experts have been contributed to develop this tool kit. So of course, it is very helpful. It will of course support brands, suppliers, subcontractors. It will help to guide them, to train them, to teach them on how to achieve a common goal to bring up the lives of home workers. So thank you for developing this tool kit. Of course, transparency. Whenever we want to make a change, first of all, we will have to admit and accept where are we wrong. For that, we need to transparently identify the things. For example, in this case, yes, first of all, we have to find out if any home working process is involved in our product during manufacturing process. Once it is identified, do we have proper supply chain? I mean, if we want to work through subcontractors, because it is very difficult to contact thousands of home workers at very remote places. So definitely we need mediators. And for that, we must have subcontractors in our supply chain. So are we mapping them appropriately? Third thing, home workers. Do we have detailed and entire list of home workers, those who are engaged in producing our products? We simply say that not a single home worker should be left behind. So each and every worker, each and every subcontractor, we must have transparently declare, admit if it is there, then only we can make the progress. So We have been working with home workers for last probably 10-15 years. Honestly speaking, 4 years back, then we started working formally with home workers. Initially, one brand means they wanted to have this to disclose our supply chain, subcontractors, home workers, and we started working with that brand. But it was at very initial stages. Then came another brand, and we started working with an organization who is very having means rich experience, Nest. So we started working with Nest 2 years back. Then everything came formally, honestly. We means this toolkit, whatever mean policy and procedures are being made available here to guide the brands, to guide the suppliers, vendors. Of course, it is developed. It means it is very useful for each and every one. But I would like to add that we will have to work more and more. This is just, I believe that it is just beginning. Okay, foundation probably have been already means foundation have been made, but we need to work on more and more. For example, if you see today we are focusing on subcontractors agreement, vendor agreement, passbook, but there are many more things which need to be addressed. For example, how the wages are calculated. Okay, we are promising that we will ensure that minimum wages are given, but we should have a tool. For example, time and motion study, how it is conducted, how fairly it is conducted, what should be the method, how many workers we are involving in that process. Secondly, when we say, okay, purchase order or job order, are we transparently declaring how much part should be kept as a margin by subcontractor? What is their actual cost of preparation or maybe logistics? And actually how much worker should get? I admit 3-4 years back, suppose we were giving them 100 rupees for a particular product. We were not bothered how much worker is getting. Maybe 50 rupees is kept by the subcontractor, and they home workers were getting only 50 rupees. Now we have developed a tool. Whenever we are issuing a job order or purchase order, it is clearly mentioned what is their logistic cost, what should be their margin, and how the wages are set, what is the minimum wages, what is the time, and how much it should be paid to the home worker. So more templates should be developed to make it more effective. Reporting mechanism, we should focus more on reporting mechanism. Until and unless home workers are not aware of their rights, I believe that it is not possible to implement. Because if they are vocal, if they are aware of their rights, if they are able to register complaint against anything, for example, discrimination is there, harassment is there, they are not satisfied with the time given to them, they are not satisfied with the piece rate given to them. So it is not just about the brands. Of course, brands, vendors, suppliers, they must be aware of everything to implement what is needed. But we must focus on home workers as well. If they are aware of their rights, they will start demanding automatically. Either we will have to work with them, so they will be paid. They will be paid fairly. They will be treated appropriately. So I believe that we should focus on reporting mechanism and grievance handling procedures as well. More templates are needed. For example, I want to monitor whether children are there. The children are working on our product. For that, we need to develop a template where we get family details. For example, a home worker is submitting how many family members are there, what is their age, how they are, means in which occupation they are involved in. Now we identify if from 15 to 18 years children is there in their family, it means there is a possibility that young workers can be used to produce a product. So we will focus.
We must finish very shortly. I'm sorry to stop you.
No, no, it's okay. It's fine, fine.
I think you have so much to say.
So,
we will.
Yeah. Just I want to say that we should develop more templates to have more information. Then only we can appropriately implement and work among home workers. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to just pass over to our final panelist, Ines, who's got some thoughts from a NGO perspective that's worked on homeworking issues.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Lucy. So very quickly, just for the ones who do not know us, we're the Center for Child Rights in Business, and we are directly working with business. We are a social enterprise, actually, and trying to work with business to ensure that business has a positive impact on children. And in that work, kind of came to us, given that it's work at home, it's very directly impacting children many times, as it's in the families, but also as Shyam also just mentioned, home working is often kind of associated with challenges around child labor. And we definitely really welcome this toolkit. And I give 3 reasons. There probably could be 10, but I kind of stop. All supply chains in one way or another, even if we don't see it, as Emma has pointed out, it is there. And when we were looking for home workers for a study we did about 2.5 years ago, where we did interviews and surveys with over 600 home workers, we sometimes use the kind of a random through CSO, do you know anyone? And even through that approach, we could actually directly link, I think 52% of the home workers to the international supply chain. But interestingly, as also Peter mentioned, only about 30% were by themselves aware about that. So they didn't know they were producing for international supply chains, and with that also didn't know about their rights. And I think the stand that the toolkit is taking with really creating that transparency and engaging everyone within that supply chain to the workers is really helpful. The second reason is obviously that home working does come with a certain set of risks. We have in that study that I just mentioned also observed issues around child labor. About 20% of the home workers we talked to were telling us that their children were directly involved. And in some cases, this was involvement to a level that definitely qualifies as child labor, and that definitely was harmful through children. And one of the key reasons for that harmful involvement of children was when families were absolutely depending on the income generated by the children to add on to their income. And that was very closely linked to the piece rates. I still remember in a follow-up project of this study, we were together with the representative from a brand, just rolling out the projects in Vietnam, and we were standing in one of the homes of one of the home workers who told us about the piece rates they're getting. And the brand representative started calculating. She was like, wait a moment. She took a paper and started calculating and starting to on doing pieces, and they were flabbergasted. They couldn't believe it. That was not their value. That's not how they wanted their supply chain to be. But it was realizing that somehow down the line this has had happened, that they had supply chains or they had piece rates that needed the whole family to work 8 hours a day to get somewhere. And obviously that was an issue, and in this case could be addressed. And I think I like the toolkit, and I like how much they address this issue around piece rates and really give practical tools to tackle that. So that's a big reason number 2. And the number 3 reason is that homework doesn't just create risk, it also creates a huge amount of opportunities. And I think Emma mentioned that particularly in this time of COVID, it actually came out as a huge amount of opportunities. Our study hasn't only shown risks on child labor, we have shown that children of home workers were much more likely to be breastfed much longer. They were much less likely to be neglected and spend a long times alone at home. And they were also much less likely to drop out of school. And these differences, and in parts, have been very, very significant. So there's a lot of positive potential that comes with homework, because we allow families to stay together, to stay in their communities, and not to have to, for example, migrate to factories. A striking number in Bangladesh, when we asked the home worker parents, do you have enough time for childcare? We had 82% who said, yes, I do. When we asked the same questions to parents in factories, we had 16% who said, yes, I do. So 16%, so all the rest of parents felt I don't have enough time to look after my children in the factories, whereas with the home worker, the large majority felt they did. And I think that shows the opportunity, and that shows how important it is that we don't push away homework out of our supply chain, that we don't hide it, but that we work with it. Work with it closely, make it transparent, so that we can build on those great opportunities that homework is actually offering. I think, and to be very supportive of this toolkit, and as I think Emma said, it's very timely.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you so much and thank you to all our panelists for their contributions. I think there's a couple of quick questions in the Q&A. I don't know whether, Peter, would you like to respond to? Oh, hang on, there was one before from somebody else that's gone.
But it's gone because I answered it. And
oh, right, okay.
But I will bring it up. So that question from
right, yes,
Kuan Poon was, is there a plan to coordinate, share and duplicate good practice between the practitioners, brands, supply chains and countries? My answer to that was, well, the Hidden Homeworkers project is a way that we can convene work in South Asia, in the countries the Hidden Homeworkers project is working in. But we are all small, underfunded organizations. And I think what there is, but clearly what we want to promote and convene collaboration. I think there we would need to be looking towards the multi-stakeholder initiatives to try and aggregate their members around initiatives. And also, I mean, if we are working with a brand in a country, we will naturally reach out to other brands that we can source, we can bring in. But we are quite small organizations with very limited resources. And then there was another question.
A couple of questions now. So
okay, and I'll answer this one first, but then I'll shut up and let other panelists speak. So somebody says, we also source home products and know homeworking is prevalent in the rugs industry or cushions. How applicable is the toolkit for the home sector? The toolkit is very, very applicable to all sections. I mean, we've aimed it at apparel and footwear because we needed to look at apparel and footwear, but most of the tools could be used in rugs. And I mean, we have parallel work looking at Christmas decorations and cushions that's going on, and most of the tools are generic. They can be used in any situation. So yeah, take them away. And I mean, and to respond to Mr. Agarwal, there is extensive guidance in the toolkits about how you can work out a piece rate that's equivalent to a minimum wage, and tested methods both through time and motion systems and more informal pragmatic systems where you try and work out from home workers how long it takes to do a piece and do that calculation, in a fairly straightforward way. And it's not, it's quite easy to do. It's not rocket science. None of the things we propose are rocket science.
Thank you, Peter. I don't know. I mean, if panelists would like 30 seconds to chip in something, if there's anything burning, how are we doing? Is there anything from the different questions that, I mean, I think I'd like to partly come back to Sir Juan's question about collaboration. And I think, I mean, it's really important to emphasize that, I mean, the Hidden Homeworkers project is a real opportunity. And to be honest, we've been struggling to get brands to come forward. I mean, brands are interested, but actually getting brands to commit. This is a great resource, this opportunity that we've got NGOs in North and South India, in Pakistan and in Nepal, that are already, that are engaging with home workers and are keen to engage with brands. So I think that is a great opportunity. There's another 18 months of that capacity, you know, and that is such an opportunity that is there. So I would really encourage brands that are sourcing from those countries in South Asia to get in touch with us if you think that you do have homework in your supply chain, or that you may do. I mean, I think that's the point of having the policy, encouraging transparency. The problem is a lot of brands say to their suppliers, you can't use home workers. We don't like home working because of the perceived link with child labour, or because of the poor conditions, the bad reputation. And obviously, if you say to suppliers you can't have home workers, your supplier's going to say you've got no home workers. I mean, it's fairly simple, isn't it? The supplier wants the business. So we would really encourage you to take up the opportunities that we're offering. I mean, I know that Ines is also, I mean, she's based in Hong Kong, so you may be able to offer, you know, we may be able to pass people on if there are concerns. I mean, I see there's another question in the chat box about China. I don't know, Ines, would you like to say anything about that one?
I was just typing, but I was just saying, yes, we do have some experience of projects that we've done in China with home workers, so happy to share those. Maybe also, so Amy, just reach out maybe to Peter or Lucy, and then we can connect, and we're definitely happy to support anyone where we have support available, and obviously in line with the toolkit that has been sent out.
Yeah, we've done a little in China, but not for many years now. So I think I will make that connection afterwards then. Okay, I think we have reached our time. So if there is, unless there are anything burning questions from anybody else, I mean, Mr. Agarwal, would you like to do anything, or Emma?
I will be in touch with you if ever any question comes in my mind, or if I need your help and support, then I will come back to you. Sure.
So, thank you, and good luck with the work that you're doing with the home workers in your supply chain. I mean, it's really good to hear from a supplier that is actively engaged in working with home workers in a responsible way. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you to Emma and to Ines and to Peter and Pradipan for all your contributions, and to colleagues within Tradecraft, Garima, and for Kratika, who's done wonders with making the technology work. So thank you all, and I would really encourage you to take a look at the toolkit, go online, check out some of the links. Any questions, do get in touch with us. We're here to help, and we really want to help. I think it's a great opportunity, so I would really encourage you to. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we should draw things to a close. So thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I've also left my email address in the chat box. So if anybody would like to get in touch with us, you can send us an email. Thank you. Thank you for joining.